Well, we're kind of hopping off into this story, kind of middle of the stream. So, but I hope many of you recall what happened. You know, Moses went. He saw the burning bush. You know, the Lord spoke to him and told him to go set the captives free. That the people, the Israelite children that were held in bondage in Egypt, and he went over there and performed all kinds of miracles, right? I mean, he performed on the curses, basically, on the Egyptian people were called down by God through Moses. You know, one plague after another, finally 10 of them in total. The 10th one being the firstborn children passed away. Of everybody, even the cows and the sheep and all that, the firstborn died during the night of Passover, right? Passover, and the Israelites were saved, rescued from the angel of death, because they put the blood of the lamb on the top and the sides of their door. Remember, so that represented the cross of Christ, right? The blood. So here they are, and the Egyptians were glad for them to leave, right? I mean, they were like, "Get gone! Y'all are calling down curses on us from heaven. Please go!" And they came out and they threw their riches at them. They said, "Here, take my money, take my gold. Just get gone. Just leave." And so the Israelites were like, "Woo-hoo, party!" You know, they were scooping up gold and you know, filling up bags full of loot. They plundered. It wasn't like St. Louis. They were looting the people without having to use any violence or vandalism. They just stood out there and they threw it at them, basically. And so here they go. They're like, "Woo, party!" And then they go off, and Pharaoh has a change of heart, right? He's like, "Oh, wait, what am I doing? How are we going to get all this work done? You know, we need these folks to do all our heavy lifting for us. Let's go get them. We got to get them back." And so they trail off, his whole army, you know, out there after them. So, you know, here we go. We join the story. They're there at the sea, the Red Sea, and they're hemmed in. You know, Pharaoh's army is on one side, the sea's on the other side, and they're what you call between a rock and a hard place. You know, they're like, "Oh my, so what are we going to do now?" And I don't know if y'all have ever been in a situation like this where you know, it seemed like all hope was gone, right? You're devastated. Your back's up against the wall. You don't know which way to turn. Everything has just fallen apart on you, right? It's a mess. It's a train wreck, right? It's like, woo! And what do we do when that happens? We do the same thing the Israelites did. And they said, "What did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness for? Why didn't you just leave us alone? We were fine being slaves in Egypt. Just let us go back. We want to go back. We're going to die out here in the middle of nowhere. Our bodies are going to rot out here and the buzzards are going to pick our bones." Isn't that Rick? Rick, why, Lord, did you let this happen to me? Why me? What did I do? Oh, Lord have mercy. It's kind of like these hurricanes. It's you know, Harvey and Irma. And of course, now there's a Maria. Oh, no. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a Maria out there. And then there's Lee behind that one. So I mean, they're stacking up like cordwood out there. Oh Lord!
Yeah, one of them is going to take the same path. It's looking like.
Yeah, one of them's coming right. I mean, I don't want to go live out there in the U.S. Virgin Islands right now. I mean, you can get some cheap property out there right now.
Yeah, my
I
sister
expect.
and her husband, they're in Grenada. You know, they're still they're way down south, but they'll have to come back through.
It ain't looking good. Ain't a good time to go to Dominican Republic either. Ooh. So, Lord have mercy. And you know, I should say, well, I got to tell you this. You know, they had all the movie stars that did a big fundraiser the other night, and it became a big political thing for global warming. They all took their Stevie Wonder. I like Stevie Wonder, but I mean, he started it all. It's all about global warming. You know, this is what we get for, you know, for not signing that accord in Paris or whatever. Well, I don't know. And well, you see people crying out. I mean, there's others that are saying it's God's judgment on America. Others are saying it's the end times. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we can know. But we've all been there. We've all had trauma hit our lives, have we not? If you haven't, be thankful, because it's coming. I mean, sorry. I don't want to be gloom and doom, but you know, I mean, if you live in this world, stuff's going to happen to you. I mean, it just does. You're going to end up there. But here's the good news. It's not the end. This world is not our home, right? It's not. And if we get so short-sighted as to look into and to think that everything that happens here is all there is, ooh, yeah, it can get pretty devastating then, because, you know, everything that happens is an end of, you know, great, or it's the end of the world. Things are, you know, all right, I'm gonna wax theological here just a minute. Things aren't really the way they seem. I mean, we see things in this physical world that are going on, that happen in our personal lives, that go on around about us. There's a spiritual component too that's going on that you and I don't necessarily see so clearly. Okay, Paul talks about it, I believe, in maybe it's Romans. No, it's Ephesians, you know, because we fight against spiritual forces in the heavenly realms, right? I mean, there's something going on that we don't know. That's an old Leonard Skinner song, I believe. There's things going on that you don't know. I mean, there are. There's things going on around us that you don't know. Just for instance, the little Alto church has been blowing and going over there. I mean, they have... the little couple that's over there, Amanda and Ryan Stratton, pastors, that little church has experienced revival. And that there's been a lot of people saved, come to know the Lord there at that little church. They've baptized. She told me yesterday or the day before, she's going to go and participate in a baptism in Crockett today. She said, I need to participate in that about once a month, or I feel like something's wrong. I was like, girl, Lord have mercy. There's things going on over there. You know, the Lord has been blessing them. But on the flip side, they've had that little church that has split wide open in the middle of all this success at Alto. And it just, the conference said, close it. This week, they closed the church, and it was all because they appointed, she's a female minister, and people left the church over that, and the little church couldn't stand it, couldn't survive, and it fell apart.
It's sad.
What am I saying? I mean, there's spiritual forces at work, and if you're doing something the Lord is involved in, the enemy is going to be trying to tear you down. So I've been constantly trying to build them up, you know. Don't be discouraged, you know, be encouraged. God is with you, and, you know, keep on keeping on, because the enemy's not, he ain't going to quit either. Amen. Right? So, I mean, yeah, that's a little bit of my, you know, my little theology. I don't know. I mean, for what it's worth, you may not agree with it, but there's things going on we don't know, and I can't pretend to know all that stuff. All right, so what am I saying here? When the chips are down. All right, y'all, USA Today, the Washington Times, This is a Washington Times article, and it kind of quotes from the USA Today article. Faith-based groups, Christian nonprofits specifically, have been busy bees of late, providing more aid to hurricane victims than even FEMA, the federal agency that's supposed to swoop to the scenes of natural disasters, assess the situation, and speed the recovery and rebuilding process. Just goes to show where charity exists, government is not needed. Look at this. Faith-based relief groups are responsible for providing nearly 80% of the aid delivered thus far to communities with homes devastated by the recent hurricanes. 80%.
Praise God.
So when you hear people talk about FEMA, and FEMA themselves said, if you want to help send money to this organization, Envoid or whatever, online, envoid.org or .com or something, it goes to the charitable people. It's distributed to the charities, the Salvation Army, Corps, the Southern Baptists, all those that are helping FEMA to do what FEMA needs to do. And perhaps most, and this is in that article, and most crucial to the cleanup is manpower, something the faith groups bring in droves. United Methodist, for example, has 20,000 or so trained volunteers around the nation standing at the ready to serve as early responders. All they need is the call. All they need is to be activated, and they're there.
Amazing.
America's greatness was, is, and always will be rooted in the fact that our rights come from God, not government. This is the Washington Times, y'all. It was an opinion piece. With that comes a responsibility that we conduct ourselves on an individual basis as if we believe in God. Bluntly put, it's what the founders believed. It's how they envisioned a moral and limited government, not just shaping, but staying around a while. Happily, it's what a large portion of America's population today still believes. So, when the chips are down, we got to get going, all right? We put our faith into action. How many gazillion dollars have been raised to go? How many of us have gone and participated hands-on? Somewhat, yeah. Moses told the people, kind of before this passage we read, don't be afraid, just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again. The Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. So whenever tragedy strikes, whenever hardship comes upon us, whenever we get our backs up against the wall, we're between a rock and a hard place, we don't need to be paralyzed in fear. The relationship we have with Christ is going to save us. It's going to get us out of that mess. I went to Mauriceville. It's where I've ended up plugging in with. I went down there this past Monday and worked to give at the church, Methodist Church there in Mauriceville. Y'all, there are in front of the Baptist Church, in front of the Methodist Church, there are flood buckets. There are hundreds of cases of water. There's resources. We sat down for lunch, and our little old ladies had brought sandwich meat and light bread. Y'all know what light bread is, right? Light bread, not bread, light bread. Oh, that's Alabama. And we were just said a blessing. We're about fixing to eat, and him walks this guy. He said, "Y'all want some jambalaya?" And we're like, "Huh?" He said, "I got jambalaya." He said, "We're down here at this other church, not one of the major churches, like Jubilee Center or something. We got jambalaya. We fixed." And we're like, "Yeah, we'll take some jambalaya." And he just goes out and starts bringing in these takeout, plates full of jambalaya and brings them in. And we sat there and had some of the best jambalaya I've ever had in my life. And so, the people of God are there, y'all. I'm just telling you, the people of God, I am amazed they have risen to the occasion. And It's a beautiful thing to see. In the midst of that devastation, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. All right, so what am I saying? Get moving. So, you know, here they are. They're at there at the Red Sea. The cloud is between the enemy and the Israelites, and they got their backs up against the wall. Now, did the Lord want them to have a prayer meeting right there? Did the Lord say, y'all need to fast and pray for 3 or 4 days or something like that? You know, well, let me tell you what he said. He told Moses this in the verses just prior to what we read. The Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to get moving. Pick up your staff and raise your hand over the sea. Divide the water so the Israelites can walk through the middle of the sea on dry ground. There's a time for us to fast and pray. There's a time for us to be in prayer and worship the Lord. There's a time for us to get moving. There's a time for us to gird up our loins and go forward in the faith God has given us, and to trust in Him for the deliverance that He's going to show us the way to go, and He's going to part the waters for us where there seems to be no way. He's going to make a way.
Amen.
Amen. John Wesley, y'all heard of him? In 1738. He had come back to England after going to America. Y'all ever heard of Georgia, right? He went to Georgia. Now, he was going to save the world, right, in his mind. And I've been that preacher before. I understand where he's at. He was going to save the world. He was going to come over here and convert all the Native Americans and all the settlers and all that stuff. Well, it didn't pan out quite like he expected. I mean, it fell apart, and he ended up engaged to a lady and broke off the engagement, and I mean, he ended up basically running from the law and got on a ship headed back to England with his tail tucked between his legs, right? I mean, and his ministry had amounted to zip nada. He had done nothing. And he went back to England, and he was questioning his whole faith life. You know, he questioned even his salvation. He was like, I don't even know if I'm saved anymore. And he ends up going over to see his brother, Charles, right? Charles, the one that wrote all the hymns. And he's over there visiting Charles, who was battling a case of the pleurisy. Y'all remember the pleurisy, right? Or that term. I don't even know if they even use it anymore or not. But he was, and this old boy named Peter Bowler, who was a Moravian missionary, was there with Charles. And John just started vomiting on him. I'm just not sure, if I'm even, a Christian anymore. And he said, I think I need to give up preaching. And he asked old Peter Bowler that. Do you think I ought to give up preaching? He said, how can you preach to others when you have no faith yourself? And Bowler said, by no means. And Wesley said, but what can I preach? And Bowler told him, he said, preach faith till you have it, and then because you have it, you will preach faith. Go on in the faith you have, right? Go on in the faith you have and keep trusting God to show you the way and to help you, right? I don't know. I mean, we can criticize his ministry. He's had a little more success than I have. I don't know. He supposedly rode 250,000 miles on horseback, preached 40,000 sermons, and his preaching and his ministry changed the trajectory of an entire nation and helped form this nation in the 1800s, right? So I think he probably had a successful ministry, right? And he nearly gave it all up at one point because he was having a weak moment in his faith. You know, there's a story or two in the Bible about Jesus. Y'all know him. Where these 10 lepers were standing out there on the side of the road, and they're crying out to Jesus, "Heal us, Lord." And he just tells them, "Go show yourself to the priest." Well, I mean, they looked down, I'm sure, and said, "Well, whatever you say," you know. And they turn around, shuffle off, you know, still, you know, with leprosy. And on the way, they got healed. On the way came their deliverance. On the way, as they were following the Lord and trusting him, and what little bit of faith they must have had, they got healed. Funny thing. And only one of them came back and thanked him, you know. So anyway, there's also that time when this, in Mark chapter 9, where this father of this little boy that was possessed by a demon or whatever tried to get the disciples to heal him, and they couldn't do it. And so he brings them to Jesus and, "Lord, I tried to get your disciples, but they couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't do anything." The thing threw the boy into the ground, down the ground, in convulsions and all that stuff. And Jesus looks at the dad and said, "Do you believe, you know, that I can heal him?" And the boy's daddy said, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." In other words, I've got a little bit of faith, but I've got doubts too. But help me overcome my doubts and my fears and my unbelief. And Jesus healed his son. Interesting. What did Jesus say? With the faith of a grain of mustard seed, you know, we can move mountains. That's pretty good bits. Go forward in the faith God has given you. Yeah, you're going to face tribulations. Yes, you're going to get your back between a rock and a hard place every now and then. And things aren't going to always go the way you want them to. Trust the good Lord. He's got a plan. Do we really think that God is caught by surprise when these things happen to us? Do we really think He's not aware? Do we really think He doesn't know what's going on in our lives, in our individual, in our little minutia of our lives? If He knows the number of the hairs on our heads, He knows every stinking thing about us and all of our difficulties and trials. And He just might know the way forward for us. I'm just, humor me a little bit. I suspect He's got a plan for our deliverance, just like He did for the children of Israel, right? I mean, He knows how we can go forward from here. Yeah, we're in this little finite world. We can't see the spiritual realm in our physical existence. We don't know what's going on around about us. But God does. And we may not be able to see the way forward. We may think this is it. This is it. And well, I will say, one day it will be it. But there's a way forward even then. When we cross that sea to forever, to be with the Lord forever, He's going to be right there with us, walking us through that sea, and He's going to part the waters, and He's going to take us forward to the shore of heaven, right? So we're never without hope. We are never at the end of the line. This life, this existence goes on forever. It never ends. Trust God. Go forward in His power and in the faith He has given you, and trust Him to show you the way, to give you deliverance, and to take you on, that you might bring Him glory. And you know what the Israelites did when they got on the other side? They had a big revival meeting over there. I mean, they were whooping it up. That would have been what we'd have called Pentecostal today. I dare say we would have done the same thing, right? I mean, you get through something like that, you don't care what anybody thinks. You're going to let it loose, and you're going to praise God, right? And you're going to dance and sing and, whoop it up. If you can do cartwheels, you'll do cartwheels. I don't know. I probably couldn't. I'd throw my back out. Anyway, y'all get the point, I hope, that God is our deliverer. He is our hope. It's not in this world. It's not in anything here. We go forward by faith. You may be between a rock and a faith place today. Between a rock and a faith place. And God may be saying to you, it's time for you to move on. It's time for you to go forward and trust me. It's time for you to get out of your rut, to get out from behind that sea and the enemy that's got you held captive. It's time for you to take a step of faith, for you to trust me, for you to hang on to me, for you to walk forward in the faith that I have given you, and let me show you the way forward, that you may bring me glory in all things.
Amen.
Amen.
Yes.
All right. God bless y'all. We're going to stand and sing our closing hymn now.